A fierce battle had broken out between a wyvern and a group of adventurers, but they weren't the main focus of this story. Somewhere nearby, a man with a bow stood quietly. He believed a true hunter didn't act for fame. He stayed calm and still, waiting for the right time to strike. The Wyvern King let out a powerful roar and the adventurers got ready to fight. One of them, a man who called himself the Great Mard, shouted that he would finally defeat the monster. But the wyvern only gave them a sharp look, and that was enough to send most of the adventurers running in fear. Mard was too slow to escape, and the wyvern's claws came close to hitting him. Just when it looked like it was the end for Mard, an arrow flew through the air and struck the wyvern hard. It came from the silent archer from earlier. The attack was strong and left the wyvern badly hurt and blinded. Seeing this, Mard and the others rushed back in and attacked the beast. The archer's name was Ganas Snipe, a skilled hunter from the S-ranked party called Twilight Dragon. With the wyvern weakened, Mard charged at it and cut its neck with his sword. The crowd cheered for him. The Twilight Dragon team had been formed by the top students from Atine Royal Academy. They climbed the ranks quickly. To Ganma, who grew up in the countryside, they were more than teammates. They were like family. They had taught him many things, both good and bad, and they kept no secrets from each other. But things changed after they became an S-ranked team. The praise and fame got to their heads. Ganma saw the shift, especially in Mard, their leader. He had changed the most. Later, as they celebrated the fall of the Wyvern King, Mard pulled Ganma aside. He said they needed to talk about what had just happened. Ganma told him not to worry. It was his job to step in when the team was in trouble. But Mard looked serious. He told Ganma that he was out of the team. Ganma was confused. Mard made it clear. Ganma was no longer part of Twilight Dragon. Ganma was confused and asked why people thought he didn't make sense. Mard got upset and said Ganma had taken the spotlight from him. He reminded Ganma that, as the hunter, his job was to stay in the back and take out the weaker enemies. Mard said the boss monster was his responsibility and that Ganma shouldn't have interfered. He made it clear that Twilight Dragon was his party, and anyone who tried to stand out more than him would be kicked out. Ganma asked if Mard was just being unreasonable. He explained that he usually didn't fight boss monsters, just like Mard said. But this time he had to step in because Mard was about to get seriously hurt. Mard, still angry, asked if Ganma was saying he couldn't handle it. Another party member tried to calm Mard down. Ganma said that wasn't what he meant. Then, one of the other team members spoke up. He said he didn't care about getting attention, but he had something to say about Ganma. He pointed out that while Mard was fighting in front and the others were in the middle, Ganma stayed in the back where it was safer. He felt it wasn't fair that everyone got paid the same. Another teammate agreed with him. That member also revealed that the only reason Ganma was allowed to join the team was because the headmaster asked them to. But now, the headmaster had already passed away from old age. He said there was no reason to keep Ganma on the team anymore and told him to leave. Ganma finally understood. They only let him join because they felt they had to. The rest of the team said they were just doing a favor for someone from the countryside. One of them added that they wouldn't stay on a team with someone who didn't work hard but still tried to take the credit. Ganma couldn't hide his frustration anymore. He said that being a hunter might not look exciting, but he had been doing his job, shooting down weaker monsters from a distance. When Ganma said that, Mard started to wonder if it was even true. He never really saw any monsters being taken out. But Mard didn't care. He thought he didn't need Ganma's help anyway. Ganma asked if Mard was serious and found it hard to believe. He already thought Mard wasn't smart, but this seemed worse than he expected. Still, he didn't really mind hanging out with someone like that. In the end, Ganma turned his back on Mard and wished him a long, happy life. As he walked away, he remembered something. A true hunter didn't fight for praise. He became one with the world. Quiet, calm, and ready to strike when the time was right. That was what his clan, the Snipe bloodline, taught him. While walking through the dark alleys, he thought about how far he still had to go. A few days later, in the kingdom of Gaetaniga, Ganma walked through the streets wondering where he could work next. The only reason he had been part of the Twilight Dragon group was because the headmaster personally invited him. But now the headmaster was gone, and Ganma had no connections left in the country. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to buy medicine for his sick little sister. Somewhere else in the city, townspeople were talking about how the Twilight Dragon had taken down the Wyvern King with just one shot. Everyone was shocked because the monster was said to be impossible to harm. Just then, a carriage stopped nearby. A woman stepped out and asked if she could talk to someone. After asking her question, the woman sighed and said it was another day with no clues. She thanked another woman for telling her about someone's exile. The second woman said they should probably go back to the Empire and try searching again once they arrived. The first woman agreed. Later, in the capital city of Niga, Ganma was surprised to find out that his usual shop refused to buy his materials. The shop owner told him he wouldn't accept anything from Ganma anymore, but said it wasn't personal. Ganma had been selling monster parts to earn money, but it looked like Mard's power had already spread. With no way to make a living, not even by getting a job, Ganma realized he had no choice but to leave the country. The kingdom of Gaetaniga shared a border with the Maduka's empire, a place known for letting people rise by skill alone. Nearby was also the Beastkin land, Naroguma. There was another option, the desert home of the elves, but Ganma didn't know anyone there. He decided to take a carriage heading somewhere else. He thought it was better to leave than stay stuck in a place with no future. While riding, he felt something strange through Fenio, a firebird spirit that lived in his arrows. Fenio could sense monsters. Ganma was surprised because monsters rarely came near such a well-guarded border. Then he noticed the danger wasn't aimed at his carriage. Fenio led his senses toward a different carriage far away, one that was about to be attacked. The people riding in the carriage were the same women from earlier. They were wondering where the person they were looking for had gone. Just then, one of them heard strange noises outside. Suddenly, a swarm of lizard monsters rushed toward the carriage. They were shocked to see so many appear so quickly. One of the hooded women told another woman named Mabel to take action. Mabel promised she wouldn't let the monsters reach the town. She used her magic to create earth soldiers, but even she knew they weren't strong enough to stop such a large group. As the monsters came closer, the carriage driver began to panic. Far away, Ganma was watching everything with his special skill called Hawkeye. This skill used a floating, invisible magical eye above his head, letting him see a wide area from a distance. He realized the monsters were poisonous, and if they surrounded anyone, even experienced adventurers wouldn't survive. Ganma asked the carriage driver to let him get off. The driver looked confused and asked if he was crazy for wanting to get out in such a dangerous place. But Ganma didn't wait. As soon as he stepped off the carriage, he used magic to create an arrow while pulling back his bow. Without hesitating, Ganma fired. The magic arrow flew high into the sky. As it started to fall, it spun and split into many arrows. These arrows rained down on the monsters attacking the carriages. In an instant, the monsters were wiped out. This powerful move was called Star Arrow, one of Ganma's special skills. It sent down a group of arrows like a falling star, and each one hit with the strength of a siege weapon. When Mabel saw all the monsters defeated, she was shocked that someone had the skill to wipe out a whole swarm like that. Still, something about it felt familiar to her. The hooded girl beside her asked what was wrong. Mabel then ran toward the person who helped them and was surprised to recognize him. It was Ganma. He also recognized her right away. Mabel felt happy that he still remembered her. Mabel and Ganma were classmates back at the academy. She was always cheerful and easy to notice. Ganma said he wouldn't forget her, especially since it had only been a year, but more than that, he was just glad she was safe. He thought they hadn't really talked much back then. The hooded woman came over and asked if this was the same Ganma that Mabel had been talking about. She took off her hood and introduced herself as Artemis de Madukas. Ganma was surprised. It was the same Madukas from the Empire. Mabel calmly introduced Artemis as the 8th Imperial Princess and said she was serving as her bodyguard. That news shocked Ganma even more. Mabel explained that her family had served the Madukas family for generations. Ganma hadn't known that Mabel came from a noble family. Artemis then said the Empire was lacking skilled marksmen. Mabel had told her all about Ganma, and Artemis thought he'd be a perfect fit for their military. So she came to find him personally. Ganma felt confused and wondered why they wanted someone like him. Mabel told him that ever since he left the Twilight Dragon, people had been trying to find him. Artemis admitted it was a sudden offer, but she asked him to at least think about it. Ganma felt like he was being offered a chance, a real job. He said the offer made him happy, but he was worried. He had just been kicked out of an S-ranked party, and he didn't want to cause trouble for Artemis. But she said it didn't matter. The way he saved them, hitting every shot perfectly without a single scratch on the driver, horse, or carriage, showed how skilled he really was. Ganma was surprised. Hearing the princess say that made him feel proud, so he accepted the offer. Artemis was glad they came to an agreement. Her first order as his new boss was that he should speak to her casually and not use formal language. Ganma was confused at first, but Mabel explained that's just how the princess was. Ganma asked if that was really okay, and Mabel said yes. So Ganma casually greeted Artemis, and she replied the same way. While Mabel and Artemis celebrated, Ganma was still surprised. He never thought he'd find a place where someone actually wanted him. Mabel noticed him staring off and asked what was wrong. She then hugged his arm and said she hoped they could work well together. Feeling her melons, Ganma blushed and looked away. Mabel quickly apologized. Ganma didn't know what to say. He couldn't believe someone like him was still this nervous. Later on, a woman told her captain that she had finished checking the new recruit's records that Mabel had sent. She said the recruit had amazing talent. The captain already knew that this same recruit had recently defeated the Wyvern King. But what surprised him even more was learning where the young man, Ganma, came from. Ganma came from a place called the Land of Monsters, an abandoned frontier where people had stopped living long ago. It was known to be extremely dangerous. There were mosquitoes that could pierce through iron, birds that flew faster than lightning, and hungry beasts that fought each other to the death for food. Even the strongest adventurers, the S-ranked ones, often didn't make it out alive from that place. The captain paused and thought that if Ganma had truly survived in such a place, his skills were far beyond what the Academy could measure. Even his grades at the Royal Academy records were unbelievable. His score reached the highest possible level for range stat, 9,999. At the same time, Ganma was seeing the Imperial capital for the first time. Mabel asked if he thought it was beautiful, but Artemis was a bit nervous, thinking their capital might seem small compared to a larger city called Gaetaniga. At the city gates, the guards checked their royal passes and quickly let their carriage through. Ganma was surprised at how fast the inspection went. Mabel explained that they used a magical tool called a detector, which worked instantly. Ganma seemed interested in how it worked. Artemis added that while their capital didn't have as long a history as Gaetaniga, their empire was the best when it came to military strength and technology. Ganma looked around in amazement at the tall buildings everywhere. Artemis said that since they didn't have much land, they built their structures upward. She asked if he found it strange. Ganma noticed how smooth the roads were, which kept the carriage from shaking. Everything around him seemed designed not just to look good, but to work well too. He liked how everything was neat and well planned. The girls smiled and welcomed him again to their country. Artemis told Ganma that he would soon meet the captain of the Walnut Corps. She said it was her own special team. Ganma was surprised to hear that she had her own unit and that it was named Walnut. Artemis reminded him to speak casually. Mabel said the captain would be the one to interview him. Ganma started to worry as he remembered the night he was kicked out of the party. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this job. Mabel leaned forward and held his hands, telling him he would be okay. But instead of calming down, Ganma got distracted by the ripe fruits in front of him. He quietly repeated words from his clan about staying calm as a hunter. Mabel thought he might be saying a prayer and told him again that he would be fine. She reminded him that they had helped him before and told him to stay positive. Ganma began to see how kind Mabel was. He thought about how popular she had been back at the academy and how he never expected to talk to her so casually. He said he would do his best in the interview. Mabel told him they would be cheering for him. The carriage kept moving through the capital until they reached an underground city. Mabel called out for the captain, saying she had brought Ganma with her. The captain, still facing away from them, said his name was Merrick and that he was the leader of the unit. He turned his chair around and said he had high hopes for Ganma. Ganma was surprised when he saw what the captain looked like. The captain turned out to be a talking squirrel. His name was Merrick, and he led a team called the Walnut Corps. Merrick said it didn't matter if he was a talking squirrel or not. After all, the Walnut Corps was already full of strange people, so things like this happened often. Artemis couldn't help but laugh a little. Since there was a new recruit, Merrick said it was time to bring out the important stuff. A vice captain named Charlotte showed up and handed Ganma the unit manual. She also reminded him that he would have an interview soon. Charlotte then introduced herself politely, and Ganma thanked her for the chance to be there. Merrick told Ganma that Charlotte was his vice captain and that she always helped him out. Then, Merrick noticed Charlotte standing next to him and smacked her butt with his tail. The sound of the smack echoed around the room. Marek quickly apologized and said he couldn't help himself because he admired her figure. Charlotte stayed calm, grabbed Marek and squeezed him tightly. She told him not to worry about it. Marek shouted that she was crushing his insides. Ganma started to wonder if this place was even safe. Mabel warned him to be careful because their captain sometimes acted inappropriately. He was basically an old man after all. Marek quickly said that he never bothered men. Artemis laughed again when she noticed that Ganma didn't seem as nervous anymore. While still being held upside down, Marek explained that this was how things worked in their group. Even though they were a military unit, they liked to keep things fun. Ganma realized that Marek acted silly on purpose just to help him feel more relaxed. Charlotte, however, complained that the captain was too laid back sometimes. At that moment, Ganma saw someone coming. A man named Oscar Wilder burst through the door and said he had just finished his patrol. Right away, he looked at Mabel and started flirting with her. Mabel backed away, trying to keep her distance. Ganma smiled, and Oscar quickly asked why another man was in the office. Marek explained that it was the Snipe person Mabel had talked about earlier. Oscar shouted in surprise. He always thought the group was like his personal fan club. The girls told him to keep dreaming. Charlotte stepped in and said it was time to stop messing around because they needed to start Ganma's test. Oscar calmed down, said sorry for acting up, and introduced himself properly as Ganma's examiner. He then told Ganma to follow him to the test area. Ganma soon stood in the middle of an earthen barrier which Mabel made using her magic. They were in the Walnut Corps' underground training area. Mabel cheered for him from a distance. Marek explained the rule. Ganma had to defeat an ice golem made by Charlotte within 10 minutes. He couldn't use any special powers or magic bows. Merrick warned that if the golem hit Ganma even once, the magic shield around him would break and he would fail the test. The golem attacked first, but Ganma quickly dodged. Merrick then officially started the test. While this was happening, Oscar proudly held a handgun. He believed that in the Empire, where guns ruled, bows were old news. In the past, he had destroyed the ice golem in less than a minute using fast gunfire. He didn't think Ganma could do anything as cool as that. But then something surprising happened. The ice golem crashed to the ground and Ganma beat it using just a wooden bow and arrow. Oscar was surprised that Ganma took down the giant so quickly. Charlotte turned to her captain and asked if he saw what just happened. Merrick said he did. Ganma had spotted the golem's weak spot right away and destroyed it. Charlotte was amazed that he hit the golem's heart, which was hidden under layers of magic ice with just one arrow. Merrick reminded her where Ganma came from. Ganma used to be a hunter who survived in the land of monsters. His superhuman strength let him shoot many arrows at once with a powerful bow. Ganma himself was happy that the test gear didn't break under his strength. Suddenly a bullet flew toward Ganma, but he quickly dodged it. He was a little surprised to see Oscar smiling at him after shooting. Oscar said Ganma may have gotten lucky with the golem, but now they would have a duel, and the loser would have to live near the latrine. Mabel told Oscar they had already seen enough of Ganma's skills. Charlotte added that Oscar had his pride as a test examiner. She told Mabel not to worry, her ice shield would protect them. And if the shield broke, she was sure Oscar would give up. Ganma ran toward the ruins to take cover from Oscar's gunfire. From what he had seen earlier, Oscar usually loaded about 20 bullets at a time. But Ganma was caught off guard when Oscar suddenly closed the distance between them and revealed a second pistol. Oscar kept shooting at close range, but Ganma kept dodging the bullets. Ganma then struck Oscar's hand hard with his bow. The hit was strong enough to break the ice shields. The girls watching were surprised. Charlotte confirmed that the shields she had set up were now gone. Mabel asked if the match was over. She was worried because Ganma was a hunter, someone who usually fights from a distance, not up close. But Merrick told her to keep watching. He said both fighters were now fully into the battle. Mabel continued to watch, still worried about Ganma. Ganma started to wonder if Oscar was playing fair by fighting up close. Oscar said he was still using guns, so it was allowed. The fight went on. Even though both of them were better at fighting from a distance, they were now battling at close range. Oscar didn't give Ganma a chance to pull out his bow. Charlotte thought Oscar could act foolish at times, but he was still the Empire's best fighter, and yet he was having a hard time. Mabel couldn't believe how Ganma was dodging everything. Merrick said Ganma deserved credit for avoiding all those attacks, but it was also clear that Oscar was using his guns to control where Ganma moved and to mess with his hearing. Then Oscar changed his attack and tried to kick. Ganma reacted fast. He stepped on Oscar's foot and jumped up. Oscar was surprised but kept firing. Ganma quickly hid behind a wall. Oscar joked to himself, wondering if they were playing hide-and-seek now. Oscar moved to a higher spot, but since Ganma was a hunter, his footsteps were quiet. Still, Oscar felt confident that he could see everything from where he stood. He aimed his guns and waited, calling for Ganma to show himself. Even though Oscar felt confident, he didn't notice the arrow that almost hit him. Instead, it stuck into a large rock next to him. Ganma's greatest skill was his sharp hearing. He could hear even the quietest footsteps, which helped him find where his enemies were. From far away, he would attack without making a sound and aim for weak spots. He pulled out his bow and arrow again and took another shot. Hunters like him relied on patience and waiting for the right moment to strike. At that point, Oscar said he understood Ganma and moved past him. He was crying out of fear, afraid of being hit. Mabel felt happy. Ganma also felt glad because it meant he now had a place where he could stay. Later on, Ganma woke up and saw a ceiling he didn't recognize. The team's medic, Refill, was happy to see him awake. She thought he was just tired from the long trip and the fight. Ganma got distracted by her appearance, which he noticed was different compared to Mabel's. Refill asked if he was curious. Ganma quickly said sorry. Refill understood, saying he was still young and it was normal for him to be distracted. She said she heard that Ganma made Oscar give up. Ganma quietly said it was true. Refill then told him that Oscar was actually an S-ranked fighter, even if he didn't look like one. This confused Ganma as he didn't understand what the ranking meant. Oscar, who was lying in the bed next to Ganma, explained that in the Maduka's empire, soldiers were ranked from S to C. He also called Ganma his brother. This made Ganma feel a bit uncomfortable since they weren't really related. Oscar then held on to him and said he usually didn't respect other guys, but Ganma had earned it. Ganma asked him to stop calling him brother. Still, he started to realize that Oscar was just a friendly person. At that moment, Mabel came in with Charlotte. They looked happy that Ganma was awake. Oscar quickly tried to flirt with Mabel, but she gave him a sharp look. She scolded him for doing something risky. Charlotte reminded him that since he lost, he had to sleep in the men's restroom. Oscar tried to get out of it by offering to treat everyone to a barbecue. He even called it a welcome party for his brother. Mabel laughed and said he was good at talking his way out of trouble. Even so, Merrick and Charlotte still couldn't believe they had hired someone insane. Merrick said they might have just found someone who could change everything. Ganma just smiled. Mabel then asked if the captain and vice captain were coming. Merrick and Charlotte said yes, and even Refill decided to get changed to join them. Ganma felt happy to be part of a team that actually acknowledged him. He started to think this place could become his new home. Oscar then asked him to help clean the restroom, but Ganma said no. Oscar called him cold-hearted. Meanwhile, a man asked about the new recruit. Artemis proudly reported that Ganma Snipe had defeated the ice golem in an instant and even made Oscar give up. She said his skills were the real deal. The man was pleased to hear that. He told her to get the Walnut core ready for battle. He said there had been strange sightings from the fairy realm and that he was counting on the rookie. Artemis told her father that she understood. Daddy Madukas has finally appeared. A few days later, in the kingdom of Gaeta Niga, Mard and his team got a request to defeat a monster called the Volcano Turtle. The master of the Adventurers Guild confirmed that the creature had appeared in a forest near the royal capital. When the guildmaster gave the request, Mard flicked his middle finger at him and reminded him to show respect. The guildmaster got angry and told Mard to stop messing around because this mission was important. It came straight from the kingdom. But Mard didn't back down. He reminded the guildmaster that his team was now ranked S and didn't accept requests from people who couldn't be respectful. One of Mard's teammates stepped in and said there was no time to argue. He had heard the king was throwing a party the next day, and important people from many places would be coming to the capital. If powerful monsters showed up, those people could be in serious danger. Mard then asked who the strongest adventurer team in the capital was. Some newly recruited girls proudly said it was their team, the Twilight Dragons. The guildmaster had no choice. He lowered his head and politely asked Mard for help. Mard smiled, pleased to see him bow. He said they really had no choice since his team was the only one strong enough to handle this. Then one of his teammates asked for a reward 100 times bigger than what they got for defeating the Wyvern King, since their team had already proven how strong they were. The guildmaster was shocked. Mard told him it was his job to talk to the kingdom and make a better deal. The guildmaster sighed and said he would try, but warned that failure wasn't an option. The girls didn't understand why he was talking about failure. They were sure everything would go well. Then one of Mard's teammates got angry and asked the guildmaster if he even knew who was sitting in front of him. He said that the great Mard could beat an S-ranked monster in seconds. Mard confidently said he would wipe out the monsters easily, but the moment they took on the request, Mard found himself out of breath. He wondered why he felt so tired. He had fought many weak enemies today, unlike before. It was the first time an adventure had left him feeling drained. Still, the two girls in the team told Mard he was cool and strong. They were happy they had joined his team. Mard, despite feeling tired, was glad he was getting so much attention. While Mard was busy enjoying attention from the girls, his usual teammates held a secret meeting. They couldn't believe how easily he did whatever they asked, as long as they praised him. Ever since they swapped Ganma's spot with the girls, Mard showed off even more. But the team also noticed that they had been running into more monsters after Ganma left. They started to wonder if it was time to leave Mard behind and escape. Just then, a volcano turtle came out of the forest. Mard was surprised. It was supposed to live in the mountains, not near the woods. The huge monster attacked, and only the boys were wiped out. The girls were disgusted and disappointed, thinking Mard wasn't strong at all. Mard blamed the girl with the thief role for not warning him. She said he should have seen the danger himself. Instead of being serious, she laughed at how his head was upside down. Mard hadn't noticed it, but casually turned it back to normal. He then asked his team, who had just gotten back up, to double his speed. Mard felt confused because he couldn't read the monster's moves like he usually did. He wondered if he had used too much energy fighting weaker monsters. The volcano turtle started building up energy in its mouth, ready to use a breath attack. Everyone ran away, leaving Mard behind. He thought it was the end for him. But at that moment, something shot through the volcano turtle's neck. The monster was killed instantly. Mard was shocked, not only by what happened, but also because he recognized the attack. He didn't want to believe who it came from. Far away in the royal capital, Ganma stood in uniform, lowering his bow after firing the shot. When asked what happened, Ganma explained that he felt the volcano turtle's tremors earlier and went ahead to stop it. Oscar wasn't surprised. He expected it from his brother. Charlotte said it was thanks to Ganma that they hadn't run into any monsters during the trip. She also believed in the long range he showed on his academy records. Refill added that Ganma had been shooting arrows along the path as they traveled, keeping them safe. Behind them stood the 8th Imperial Princess Artemis. Mabel also shared that thanks to Ganma, they reached the kingdom of Gaeta Niga without trouble. The Walnut Corps had been assigned to escort Artemis to a party there. Mabel said it was all because of Ganma's efforts. Ganma felt a bit taken aback and quickly said it wasn't anything special. He wondered why he was smiling like a fool. He reminded himself that Mabel only saw him as a teammate. If he was the only one feeling awkward, he would just look weird. Then Mabel noticed something. She said Ganma looked good in his uniform and pointed out that they matched. When he saw her smile and noticed her deadly assets, Ganma silently repeated the hunter's vows to himself. Later in the guest hall, Charlotte showed the map of the venue and a list of all the guests. She also gave a device to Ganma. At first, Ganma thought it was an earring. Merrick explained that it was actually a magical device that let people talk to each other, even from far across the venue. Ganma was amazed and asked if it was okay for him to receive something so valuable. Merrick said it was fine because he made it himself and asked for more praise. Ganma was surprised to hear that. Refill then mentioned that the captain, Merrick, was a magical toolmaker, not just a strange squirrel. Right after, Merrick jumped into Refill's chest to relax. Ganma remembered that a magical toolmaker was someone who placed spells into tools. That meant they could make useful items and weren't just regular people. Of course, the fact that Merrick was a talking squirrel already made him unusual. Then Oscar called Charlotte's attention about the team assignments. He asked why he and his brother were both placed on indoor security, and suggested it would look better if the pairs were mixed with boys and girls. Charlotte reminded him that his reason for asking was pretty clear. She explained that Ganma's Hawkeye skill worked best for watching from above, which made him perfect for outdoor work. However, because the host of the event, the Kingdom, did not allow weapons inside the venue, they needed strong people inside who could stop threats with just their hands. That's why Oscar and his brother were placed there. Oscar said it couldn't be helped if something happened. Ganma then asked if the outdoor security would be okay. Charlotte explained that the garden would be protected by golems, which were magical beings controlled by her and Mabel. That meant the two of them would watch over the garden. Refill, on the other hand, would stay close to the princess as her bodyguard. Artemis trusted her for that job. The party had started. Artemis already looked lovely and stood out, but more people paid attention to Refill because of her bold outfit. Everyone at the event had their eyes on the two of them. Meanwhile, Merrick quietly asked Ganma what was happening inside. Ganma said that no one seemed to be acting strange yet. Suddenly, Ganma heard a woman's voice calling his name. When he turned around, he saw a girl happily running toward him. It was Princess Hestia, and she looked truly happy to see him. Merrick, surprised, remembered that she was the first princess of the kingdom. He quickly asked Ganma how he knew her. Ganma explained that they had met before after he helped her once. Hestia told Ganma, who was kneeling, to relax. She said she had been thinking about him. Ganma was confused and asked what she meant. Hestia said she had received a report from the Twilight Dragon group saying Ganma had gone missing. She had been worried the whole time. Ganma was surprised to hear this. He said he hadn't gone missing. He had been exiled. Hestia was shocked and said something strange was going on. She realized there needed to be an investigation. She also wondered if the report about the volcano turtle mission was false. Ganma asked what she meant. Hestia explained that the Twilight Dragons claimed they defeated the volcano turtle without him. Even her royal guards were talking about it. Ganma said he was actually the one who defeated the volcano turtle. Hestia believed him right away. Ganma was glad the kingdom didn't suffer any damage. Hestia quietly smiled at him. She said she would send her thanks later through official channels. Ganma said he couldn't accept any rewards anymore because he was no longer an adventurer. Still, Hestia insisted and then politely excused herself. As Ganma watched her walk away, Merrick said that Hestia looked like someone who had feelings for Ganma. He said he could tell because he was an old man, but Ganma didn't believe it. He thought he was just a regular person, not someone special. Suddenly the lights went out. People started to panic a little and asked for someone to turn them back on. At that moment, Ganma felt a strong sense of danger. Merrick noticed it too. Ganma said he knew what to do. He used his night vision skill, a hunter ability that helped him see even in complete darkness. Using a magic communication tool, Ganma told Oscar where the attacker was coming from and asked him to protect Artemis. Then he told Refill to take Artemis and run in the opposite direction. He said this would stop the attacker from surprising them. Ganma quickly picked up a nearby plate and threw it across the room. It spun through the air and flew toward Hestia, but he was aiming at the man behind her who was about to grab her by the neck. The plate hit the man's arm and made him pull back. Ganma went to check if Hestia was okay. Hestia said she was fine, and when she recognized Ganma's voice, she asked what had just happened. Ganma told her that someone had tried to assassinate her. He realized that the attackers were going after both Artemis and Hestia. That's when he figured out that these people were trying to kidnap important leaders from the kingdom. He looked around and saw about 10 armed attackers inside the venue, but he felt they weren't that strong. Even after knocking one of them out, the sense of danger didn't go away. That made him wonder if this was all part of a bigger trap. Then, Marek whispered in Ganma's ear and told him to listen carefully. He asked Ganma to take control and use them. Ganma was confused and asked what he meant. Merrick jumped off Ganma's shoulder and told him to start giving out the enemy positions. He said Ganma could count on him and Oscar. Merrick reminded him that they were a team and that they always handled problems together. That's what teammates do. Ganma was surprised by those words. Until now, no one had really trusted or appreciated him. He had been pushed aside before, but this time it felt different. He decided to fight alongside his team. Merrick spoke to everyone through the communication system and told them that Ganma, who had the night vision skill, would now give out the enemy locations. He told Oscar and Refill to take control of the venue. He also warned Mabel and Charlotte that the attackers might have allies outside and told them to stay safe. If things went well inside, he would send Ganma to help them. Everyone understood their captain's orders clearly. Ganma felt proud to be trusted. He began giving out directions to his teammates. With people like these by his side, he felt ready to fight with a peace of mind. A few hours later, the lights came back on, and Artemis asked everyone to stay calm. She explained that her bodyguards had successfully stopped the intruders who had sneaked into the venue. Everyone felt relieved and praised Artemis's guards. Refill even gave Ganma a hug to thank her. God bless those melons. Oscar also said they would have been helpless in the dark if Ganma hadn't helped, and he thanked him too. Ganma was so surprised by all the kind words that he didn't know what to say. He felt like he was the one who should be thankful. He realized that he got through the situation because everyone believed in him. It also taught him how important it was to work as a team. Just then, Mabel spoke through the communication device and said they needed help. Merrick asked what was going on. Mabel reported that a dragon had brought monsters into the garden. She said there were a lot of them. Merrick told Ganma to head out. Mabel said they needed his strength. Suddenly, Hestia appeared holding the bow that Ganma had asked her to keep. Ganma took the bow from her and thanked her. In an instant, an arrow shot out from the castle. Ganma had just fired a phoenix arrow to call Fanio. Fanio flew around the castle until it found the garden, which was filled with monsters. Inside, Mabel and Charlotte were struggling to hold the monsters back with the help of some golems. Mabel asked what they should do because no matter how many times they attacked, the dragon didn't seem hurt at all. Charlotte started to wonder if the dragon couldn't die. As Ganma looked more closely at the dragon, he noticed a scar on its eye that seemed familiar. Then he realized it was the body of the Wyvern King he had recently defeated with the Twilight Dragons. He told Mabel that the enemy was already dead. Mabel asked if he meant it was a zombie, but Charlotte said she couldn't feel any necromancy magic and didn't understand how the corpse was moving. Ganma said he would try to find out who was controlling it. As he looked around more carefully, he noticed a swarm of mosquitoes flying around the dragon's body. He started to think maybe they were the ones making the dragon move. When Charlotte heard that, she panicked and told him to run away. But Ganma refused. He was sure the one controlling the mosquitoes was close by. He had been feeling their bloodlust. As a hunter, he had promised himself he would find them. The women saw Ganma come out of the castle. Charlotte told him not to come out, but Mabel looked happy to see him. Ganma told them not to worry because he planned to shoot down all the mosquitoes that were stuck to the dead monster. He used his skill called Star Arrow. The arrow broke into smaller arrows and hit the mosquitoes accurately. Even though he hit the targets, Ganma still felt uneasy. He sensed a strong killing intent around him, like something was touching him. But no matter how hard he looked or listened, he couldn't find where the enemy was. From this, he figured something out. He asked Mabel to dig into the ground and she quickly did what he said. Using her earth magic and a skill called Earth Shift, she dug up part of the garden. The soldiers were shocked when a huge hole suddenly appeared in the ground. Mabel said she just followed Ganma's request and asked if he really expected this to happen. Ganma said yes while staring down into the hole. He guessed the enemy was using the sewers to send out the swarm. As he got ready to shoot into the hole, something suddenly came out. Mabel saw Ganma get hit and called out to him. However, she soon wore a shocked expression after seeing what came out of the hole. Everyone inside the party hall could hear the sounds of fighting outside. Merrick said he got a report from Charlotte and told everyone to stay alert. He advised anyone without a weapon to stay indoors. Oscar, looking worried, asked what was going on. Merrick said they had appeared. Just hearing those words made Oscar look shocked. Merrick explained that someone was controlling a large number of death cores. He believed the attacker was actually a corpse being controlled by someone else. Refill got nervous, realizing they hadn't told Ganma about the demon race yet. Marek agreed, but said he didn't expect the demons to show up outside Madukas. Someone pointed out that this didn't make sense since the demons were believed to be wiped out long ago. Hestia added that the Demon King and his followers had been destroyed by the hero 2,000 years ago. She said this was one of the most famous legends in Gaetaniga. She then asked why the demons were appearing again. After hearing that, Merrick remembered that the hero came from Gaetaniga. For now, he told Refill they needed to help Ganma. Refill agreed and said she would handle it. Then Merrick asked Oscar if he had brought his prototype. Oscar said it was loaded outside, so Merrick told him to bring it and come with him. Meanwhile, Ganma was unharmed and had landed on top of Mabel's golem. Suddenly, a strange figure rose from the ground. Even people inside the estate, like Hestia, had never seen a creature like that before. Artemis walked up to her and said the demons attacking were a new kind. She explained that they looked like giant bugs with bodies as strong as steel. She said this type of demon first showed up in the Empire 10 years ago. Artemis described how the creature's wings glowed with light and it could even speak their language. As it made a loud buzzing noise, wings made of light appeared from its back. These creatures called themselves the Demon Insect Clan. The demon insect began to speak, calling humans weak and unworthy. It demanded that they hand over the ruler of the nation alive. If they refused, it said its swarm, called Buzz, a group of horned mosquitoes, would attack and destroy everyone. The mosquito swarm then attacked the estate. Mabel quickly created more golems to protect them. Even with the golems blocking the way, Charlotte could tell that it would be very hard to stop the enemy. Ganma knew he had to act. He used a powerful skill called Dragon Arrow. This attack was strong enough to defeat huge monsters like the volcanic turtle and the wyvern king. Ganma aimed and fired the arrow at the demon insect. The arrow cut through the mosquitoes in its path, clearing the way. But when it hit the demon insect, the creature was not hurt at all. It had taken the hit straight on and didn't even flinch. Charlotte was shocked by what she saw. The demon insect then said that creatures without wings would never reach their level. It attacked Ganma but missed, only hitting the golem he had been standing on. Ganma dodged just in time. Realizing the danger, Ganma told Mabel and Charlotte to stay back. He could tell this enemy was different from the usual monsters. He also noticed something strange. He couldn't hear it breathing, though it clearly wanted to kill. Ganma started to wonder if it was even a living being. At the same time, Oscar was on a rooftop, aiming at the demon insect through a scope. He fired a shot from his sniper rifle, hitting it right in the head. When Ganma heard the gunfire, he knew Oscar had joined the fight. Oscar apologized for taking so long and wondered how much damage he had done. Merrick, who was with him, told him to look closely. He pointed out that the demon insect's outer shell was as hard as steel. He had heard it was as tough as divine iron. Still, it looked like the sniper bullet had managed to cause some damage. Even the demon insect seemed surprised that its tough shell had been scratched. It couldn't believe that humans, whom it saw as weak, had managed to harm it at all. Oscar playfully tried to get its attention. Merrick said they just needed one more shot using their special bullets. Over the communication device, he asked Ganma to do something that seemed impossible. He said he and Oscar would act as decoys to keep the enemy busy. While they distracted it, he wanted Ganma to shoot the creature's cracked head from far away. The demon insect got angry and started chasing them. It even destroyed the building they were standing on. Charlotte couldn't believe the captain was taking such big risks. Luckily, she had cast an ice shield just in time so Oscar and Merrick weren't hurt by the attack. Oscar shouted that he didn't like playing hide and seek, but tag was more his style. Merrick pulled out a small cannon and fired something he called Super Knockout at the enemy. The demon insect said the attack was too weak as it received the cute cannonballs and told Buzz to strike again. Charlotte said Buzz acted just like bugs that crawl out of sewers. Then she gave a signal to Mabel. Mabel lifted a large piece of land and said she would block the hole in the ground so no more creatures could come out. She sealed the underground path where Buzz was coming from, surprising the demon insect. While this was happening, Ganma moved quietly to the side of the demon insect, staying at a safe distance. He planned to mix the power of the dragon arrow with the star arrow. He combined several star arrows to create a single beam of light. The arrow he imagined appeared in his hand. He said that if anyone tried to hurt his teammates, he would go after them. He shot his arrow, and a thin beam of light passed through the demon insect's head. Everyone in the Walnut Corps watched this important moment. The demon insect fell to the ground. It looked around, confused, and wondered why it had fallen. When it looked to the side, it realized the archer had done it. Without showing any emotion, Ganma took another shot and crushed the creature's head. The demon insect was shocked. But what surprised everyone even more was what happened next. There was actually a person inside the exoskeleton controlling it. It felt like something out of Evangelion. The pilot couldn't believe that humans were stronger than him. He called it a disgrace to his clan. He was sure that even though his armor was broken, the demon insect king would kill him for losing. Meanwhile, Ganma had already learned a lot from the fight. He studied the sound, speed, and weight of the enemy's exoskeleton. He also noticed how the wings moved. From that, he guessed the enemy would fly away. And just like he thought, the enemy flew up into the sky at high speed. Merrick shouted that it was escaping, but Ganma had already figured everything out. No matter how far it tried to run, Ganma knew he could catch it, with the help of his loyal teammates. He said he was Ganma Snipe of the Walnut Corps and took down the fleeing demon insect with a single shot. The blast lit up the night sky over the capital. People in the city wondered if the castle was having a fireworks show. Mard was smoking on the balcony when loud noises started bothering him. Feeling annoyed, he went back into the room and asked what his teammates were doing. He saw the girls sitting on the boys' laps. They said they were bonding as teammates and even asked Mard to join them. But when Mard looked at one of the girls' faces, he could tell they were probably high on something again. He told them to do whatever they wanted and leave him alone. Mard stepped outside again and took a moment to mourn a teammate who had died after being crushed by the volcanic turtle. While he was standing there, he noticed some royal guards nearby. They were talking about finding him and his team. At the same time, somewhere else in the city, a demon got a report that one of his people had lost to the humans and that the body had been taken. He ended the call he was on because he had just found something more interesting, a rare person. That person was Mard, who was now being dragged away by the royal guards. Using his high-tech mask, the demon scanned Mard. He remembered that humans were born with special roles from heaven. For example, a swordsman could gain amazing sword skills, and a hunter could become great with a bow and arrow. But there was more. Each person also had a fate that showed their real purpose in life. The scan revealed Mard's fate. It was called the Lying Hound. It meant he was meant to be a stepping stone for others, but he had superhuman strength fueled by jealousy. The demon, seeing this hidden power, thought Mard would be able to survive the experiments too. After the fight, Ganas stared quietly at the night sky until the others joined him. He felt relieved that both Mabel and Vice Captain Charlotte were safe. Merrick and Oscar showed up soon after. Refill came running and hugged Mabel. Mabel asked if something was wrong. Refill said she was just worried about her. While healing her wounds, Refill reminded her to take care of even small injuries. Mabel thanked her but said there was no need to worry. Refill suddenly went quiet. Oscar noticed she looked worried. He asked if she was still thinking about something from the past. He told her not to worry. Mabel would be fine with them around. Then he joked and asked Refill to treat his wounds too. But Refill told him to spit on them instead, since she knew he didn't actually get hurt. Oscar was surprised she figured that out. He then asked if she was okay earlier. Refill said she had used a spell to stop the guests from causing trouble. Oscar said he expected that from her. Artemis also came out. She praised the group and was happy that everyone was safe. Now all that was left was to tell Ganma about the magic insect race and their country, the Madukas Empire. 10 years ago, a new kind of demon called the Magic Insect Tribe suddenly appeared in the Madukas Empire. The Imperial soldiers were able to fight them off, but many villages were attacked and the damage was serious. After that, the Empire formed several teams to study and defend against these demons. One of these teams was called the Walnut Corps. It was placed directly under the Queen's control because the Empire had ordered everyone to stay silent about the Magic Insect Tribe. The next day, the whole team went out to eat at a restaurant. Merrick praised everyone for their hard work and led a cheer. Everyone raised their glasses. Mabel, whom Ganma saw in casual clothes for the first time, praised Ganma for doing a good job. Ganma said she thought Mabel did well too. Since it was a welcome party for Ganma, Mabel wasn't wearing her usual uniform. When she noticed Ganma staring, she asked what was wrong. Ganma said it was nothing. Charlotte then called out to Mabel and started talking to her. Ganma froze when he saw Charlotte. Her beauty caught him off guard. She noticed and gave a small laugh. Artemis and Refill were also at the party. Artemis looked as elegant as always, but Refill stood out with how bold her outfit was. Ganma's thoughts were interrupted when Merrick suddenly jumped onto his shoulder. Merrick asked if he was really okay. Ganma asked what he meant. Merrick reminded him about the king and Hestia's grand welcome earlier. Not long ago, Ganma had been called by the king of Gaetaniga and Princess Hestia. They thanked him deeply for helping them. They also apologized for how rude his old teammates from the Twilight Dragon had been. The king begged him to return to Gaetaniga and promised to give him a noble title. Even more, the king offered his daughter Hestia to be engaged to him. Hestia seemed happy about it. She said she was glad because they saw Ganma as their hero. She was ready to give him both her heart and her loyalty. Ganma was silent at first, then he said he felt honored, but he had already found a new home. He said it was a place where he had friends he could trust. He had already made up his mind. He was now Ganma Snipes of the Madukas Empire's Walnut Corps. Hestia didn't say anything after that, but the look on her face felt strange, like something wasn't right. Back in the present, Merrick said it was touching how Ganma chose his friends over a noble title and marrying into royalty. He couldn't believe Ganma gave up such a big chance just to stay with their small team. The moment made him cry. Ganma said it wasn't that serious, but Oscar hugged him anyway, saying he expected nothing less from his brother. He said their bond had grown even stronger. Then he told everyone to celebrate because their captain would pay. Merrick told them to drink like there was no tomorrow, but asked Charlotte to write it down as a team expense. Charlotte called him cheap. To everyone's surprise, Artemis offered to pay for everything and told them to eat and drink as much as they wanted. Ganma asked if it was okay for Artemis to be in town so openly. Artemis laughed and said she enjoyed sneaking into the town like this. She often went shopping or walked around with Mabel. Mabel said Artemis loved fashion, so they visited the tailor a lot. Artemis added that she was the one who chose the Walnut Squad uniforms. Mabel mentioned that the designs were a bit daring. Artemis said they were cute and that she added some style based on noble trends. She believed thinner fabric made it look more artistic and asked Ganma if he agreed. Ganma said it looked good on Mabel, though he didn't say how he wasn't sure where to look. Refill joked that things were getting a little too much for Ganma. Artemis wondered if that was true. Ganma thought they were strange nobles. Refill then said she picked her own clothes too. She told Ganma to let her know if he ever wanted to see her wear something he liked. Ganma just laughed. Mabel said Ganma was really cool for defeating the enemy in just one hit. Ganma wasn't sure about that and said it only happened because everyone helped him. But Charlotte agreed with Mabel. She said that without Ganma, things could have gone badly, and that's why she was thankful. Ganma felt surprised. Charlotte told him to drink more and Refill offered him a piece of tempura. With both women giving him attention, Ganma didn't know what to do, so he just opened his mouth and let them feed him. Mabel warned the two that they were confusing him. Refill asked if Mabel was getting jealous, but Mabel quickly denied it. Charlotte said she would just give Ganma even more if that was true. She mentioned she wanted to have a real conversation with him. Some of the others said Charlotte was being too bold, but she reminded them that they were off duty. Refill then leaned on Ganma, and Mabel tried to stop her. Oscar joined in and said he was also free to have fun. The others gave him a cold look, then laughed. Refill wrapped her arms around Ganma and asked him to go somewhere. Mabel was shocked. Oscar laughed, but Merrick told him to face the truth. After the celebration, the group decided to split up. Refill and Oscar took Artemis home. Charlotte pulled out a rat cage and offered to take Merrick back. Ganma told Mabel it was time for them to head out too. The two walked quietly in the same direction. Ganma thought about how he had been staring too much at the girls earlier when they were wearing casual clothes. He had even been spoon-fed by the vice captain and the doctor. He felt like he had broken every rule in the hunter's code. He reminded himself that a hunter didn't act for praise, became one with all things, and waited patiently for the right moment. He apologized in his mind to his ancestors for giving in to his desires. Mabel noticed him muttering and asked what it was about. Ganma said it was nothing. Then Mabel asked for his hand and gave him a charm. It looked like a phoenix keychain. She said someone as strong as Ganma probably didn't need a charm, but she reminded him of what the captain said, that the Walnut Corps was starting to take on dangerous missions. Ganma smiled and thanked her. He promised to keep it safe. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Gaetaniga, deep inside the castle, Mard sat in a prison cell after being beaten. He complained about how harsh the queen was, even though she looked kind. The queen had punished him for sending Ganma away, which caused him to end up in Maduka. Mard felt like nothing in his life was going right. Then the lock on his cell suddenly fell to the ground. Mard froze, confused and unsure if it was real. He smiled at first, but then started to think it might be a trap. Still, he didn't want to die in a prison cell. He decided he wouldn't let things end like this. Somewhere else, in a place filled with flying bugs, a masked demon named Eucerica was watching the replay of her battle against the Walnut Corps. Another demon asked her what she was looking at. He noticed Eucerica was watching the hunter, the one who had destroyed her machine and turned it into a work of art. Eucerica told him to be quiet. Then a hologram screen appeared and asked why they were being so loud. The dragonfly demon insect Tonbo then said that Eucerica had been complaining ever since her machine got destroyed. He offered to go instead and have some fun with the hunter. The demon on the screen agreed, and Tonbo was surprised at how fast he got permission. The demon on the call, named George, said he had found something even more interesting. The two others asked if it was someone stronger than the hunter. George said it wasn't stronger, just more stubborn. Tonbo said he wasn't interested in weak ones. Eucerica complained that George was still into strange things and told him to do whatever he wanted. George said he would. Tonbo then launched his machine. A large dragonfly-like machine flew into the sky above a thick forest. Later, in the Madukas Empire, Mabel brought drinks and snacks while praising the others for their training. Charlotte thanked her for the food. Mabel told her to eat as much as she wanted. Ganma was surprised that Mabel could bake. Mabel said that cooking was her hobby. Oscar came back to work after helping with the exams. Charlotte noticed that the field tests took longer than usual and asked if there were any good candidates. Oscar told her that one person said they were an S-ranked adventurer. He expected them to be strong, but they were too weak to even be taken seriously. Still, the person kept asking to be placed in S-rank. Oscar just played along until they gave up. Ganma was surprised that they were talking about such things so casually. Charlotte asked what rank Oscar gave that person. Oscar said it was C-rank, but added that the Empire already had a lot of strange C-ranked people. He wasn't sure if that person would be able to keep up. Ganma said Oscar had a tough job. Oscar then noticed they were eating something good. Mabel told him there was some saved for him too, and Oscar was happy to hear it. Ganma asked if S-rank was the highest in the Empire. Oscar explained that most people were ranked A, B, or C. There were only a few S-ranked squads, and sometimes there were even more powerful ones called exceptional S-ranks. Ganma found it interesting. Oscar told him not to feel left out because someone like Ganma might even reach SS rank one day. Ganma wasn't sure, but Oscar reminded him that in all his years as an examiner, he had never met anyone like Ganma. Ganma then remembered the time Oscar pointed 2 pistols at him and cornered him. He looked down, clearly upset. Oscar apologized and said he just got too excited after meeting someone strong for the first time in a while. He offered his pudding as a way to say sorry, and somehow Ganma accepted it. Mabel asked where Refill was. Charlotte explained that she had asked Refill to bring Richter because they hadn't introduced her to Ganma yet. Ganma asked who Richter was. Oscar said that Richter worked with Walnut Core behind the scenes. She usually stayed in the lab and rarely came out. Just then, Refill arrived and said sorry for taking so long. It had been hard to get Richter to come. A sleepy-looking girl came in, nodded, and said the room smelled sweet. Mabel greeted her. Charlotte introduced Richter as the team's scientist. Ganma noticed how thin she was. He said it was nice to meet her. Ganma tried to shake her hand to introduce himself, but Richter ignored him. Instead, she slowly walked toward Mabel with her eyes closed. Mabel noticed that Richter couldn't resist sweets and gave her some of her pudding. Richter smiled widely as she enjoyed the taste. After finishing, she apologized to Ganma for ignoring him and finally introduced herself. Ganma did the same. Refill saw that Ganma looked confused, so she explained the situation. She introduced Richter as the captain and scientist of the Mycan squad. Richter made special bullets used to fight the demon insect tribe. Oscar said the bullets he used in their last battle were made by her. Ganma then guessed that Richter could improve his arrows too. Richter remembered that Ganma was an archer and asked to see his weapon. Ganma showed it without hesitation. Richter said she had never seen that kind of material before and asked what it was made of. Ganma said his grandfather told him it was made by forest fairies. After hearing the word fairies, Richter seemed slightly uncomfortable and asked for some time. She then moved closer to Ganma's face and looked at his eyes. She said she was curious about them and invited him to her lab so she could study him further. Ganma was confused and embarrassed. Refill noticed how nervous Mabel was and joked about how interested Richter seemed in Ganma. Richter said she hoped they could get along and Ganma agreed. The next day at the C-ranked headquarters of the Madukas Empire, Mard sat with a group of new recruits. A man named Gatto approached him after hearing that Mard was the rookie Oscar had mentioned. Mard quickly told everyone that he was an S-ranked adventurer and had no plans of being friends with lower-ranked adventurers. This upset the others. One person even mentioned a rumor that Mard was a criminal from Gaeta Niga. Another said that in the Empire, even criminals were accepted if they were strong and useful. Mard told him to be quiet. He was still angry that Oscar ranked him as C. Someone warned Mard to be careful with his words because Oscar was one of the most powerful people in the Empire. Mard said he could take Oscar's position someday. Gatto then explained that the Empire only valued skill and strength. He told Mard that power couldn't be gained through money or connections, and that he should keep that in mind. Later, one of the C-ranked adventurers brought up a rumor that Oscar had recently noticed another S-rank member from the Walnut Core. Someone said they hoped to meet that person one day, while another said it would only happen if they became stronger first. Gatto liked their determination and told them to keep working hard. He also told Mard to speak less and focus more on effort if he wanted to rise. But Mard didn't care about the advice or the Walnut Core. He was set on using his power to rise to the top, and said he would be the one everyone respected. He also made it clear that anyone who got in his way wouldn't be forgiven. Suddenly, the alarm system alerted all C-ranked assault squads from A to G. An S-ranked monster had appeared in the nearby Sasunoa forest, and other nearby monsters started acting more violently. The squads were ordered to help evacuate the people and get rid of the weaker monsters. Mard complained that they were stuck fighting weak enemies again. Artemis was the one who made the announcement. After that, she told the Walnut Core that all teams from S-rank down to C-rank had been called in for support. She said the mission might be difficult, but she asked her team to help protect the country. Charlotte looked at Ganma and said it was the right time to try out his new move. Mabel asked what kind of move it was. Ganma explained that he had just finished training with Charlotte not long ago. Oscar, watching them, said his sworn brother was as serious as ever. The Walnut Squad finally reached the area near the battlefield. Charlotte asked Ganma what was going on. Ganma took a deep breath and concentrated, used his Hawkeye's skill, and scanned the entire forest ahead. He saw a huge group of monsters moving straight toward the Empire. He was sure it was just like before. They were being controlled by a swarm of flying bugs. Charlotte felt disappointed because her technique wouldn't be useful in this situation. Mabel figured it was her turn to help. She planned to use her power to move the ground and trap the monsters in one place. Ganma noticed that there were even more monsters this time, but he believed their team could handle it. He told the others he would spread out the monsters using his star arrows. As Ganma fired arrows high into the sky, Mabel used her earth magic to shift and break the land below the monsters. The monster horde was destroyed as arrows rained down from above and the ground crushed them from below. Not far from the fight, Gato noticed the explosions and assumed that the S-rank squad had started their battle. Mard looked toward the horizon and saw something like a huge explosion in the distance. He wondered what was happening over there. Just then, the PA system announced through the nearby speakers that the monster horde in Point B had been taken out by Ganas snipes from the S-ranked Walnut squad. It said he had taken down the enemies one by one all by himself. Mard stopped for a moment as he tried to process what he had just heard. Ganma. He couldn't believe Ganma was in the same country right now. Even more surprising, Ganma had reached S-rank, unlike him. Mard stood there in shock while the others angrily asked what he was spacing out for. They told him to stay alert and watch the area. Mard told them to shut up, saying he could handle the monsters by himself, but more enemies suddenly came at him from the side. Luckily, Gato showed up just in time to help him. Gato said that acting like a lone wolf wasn't cool at all. The others also complained about how Mard kept running off alone and making things harder for the team. They said they were surprised he had even made it this far and that now he was just slowing everyone down. Mard got angry and told them to say it again. But before he could do anything, another monster jumped at him and tried to bite his neck. Thankfully, another teammate stepped in and saved him. He told them to stop fighting and focus. If they weren't careful, they could all end up dead. Meanwhile, Mabel commended Ganma for a job well done. Ganma claimed it was only thanks to her that he took them down smoothly. Charlotte claimed all that was left was for Oscar to snipe the exposed demon insect. Ganma then decided to scan the area again with his hawk eyes to locate them. Just then, someone exploded in the far distance. Ganma recalled that was the area where the captain, Malik, and Oscar should be. He then left, leaving Mabel and Charlotte behind to check on them. Inside the forest, Merrick told an unconscious Oscar to snap out of it. Oscar claimed this was getting bad. Ganma finally arrived and called out to them. Oscar apologized and showed his burned right arm. He claimed he can't shoot anymore. Ganma asked if he was okay in general. Oscar claimed he was. However, his sniper rifle was broken in half. He claimed the enemy anticipated every move they made. He claimed it was almost like the enemy watched their last battle. A demon insect suddenly came down from above and shouted that Oscar was right. Without waiting, it fired a strong beam attack at close range. Ganma quickly pulled the others away just in time and pushed them to safety. After making sure they were out of harm's way, he turned and stared hard at the demon insect. Tonbo explained that he had watched their last fight closely, going over the video one frame at a time. He proudly shared that he had figured out how their rifle could break through the demon insect's armor, and that Ganma could shoot an arrow into the weak spot. He told them to stop wasting time and finish the job. If they refused to move, then he said he would take action himself. Ganma agreed that the rifle was their only hope of hurting the demon insect's strong armor. Tonbo then launched a non-stop attack. Ganma reacted quickly and moved out of the way, but Tonbo's machine had a tail that worked like a weapon. The tail stabbed at Ganma again and again, but he managed to avoid every hit. He leapt from place to place, using the trees around him to stay ahead. He kept his eyes locked on Tonbo, ready for whatever came next. He realized this one moved faster compared to the last demon insect. He reminded himself to stay calm and focus on finding the monster's heart. But before he could look for it, he noticed something strange. Even though the creature was moving right in front of him, he couldn't feel any sign of life from it. That confused him. Then he remembered something his adoptive father once said. Old man Genkoji had taught him that not everything in the world can be seen with just their eyes. A true hunter needed more than just sight and hearing. Genkoji's words had stayed with him. His sister Felisa had listened to those lessons too. Genkoji had told him to pay attention to his opponent's actions, instincts, and emotions. If he could focus on those things, he would begin to notice things that were invisible before. Genkoji also warned him not to let his own guesses get in the way. He needed to trust his inner sense and strike at the right moment. Ganma finally understood what that meant. He silently thanked his grandfather. He almost made a big mistake. Just then, Charlotte arrived right on time. Ganma asked her to use the move they had practiced together. Charlotte agreed without hesitation. Magic started to glow from her hands. Tonbo stepped forward and challenged them, telling them to bring it on. Ganma focused on Charlotte's movements so he could match her rhythm. He concentrated as they combined their magic. When they were ready, Charlotte touched the hand Ganma was using to hold his bow. Ganma created a special arrow powered by ice magic. They called this combined attack the Zero Coffin Arrow. Ganma aimed and fired the arrow. Tonbo watched as it flew quickly through the air. When it hit its target, the arrow caused a giant block of ice to form between the trees. Ganma stayed alert and checked if the enemy's aura was still there. Just like last time, he didn't feel anything. The attack had worked. Zero Coffin Arrow was a powerful move that combined Ganma's Star Arrow with Charlotte's ice magic. As the name suggests, it would freeze and seal whatever it touched. After the battle, Ganma shared his thoughts about the demon insects with the others. He had some theories about what they really were. Later, in the capital city of Carter, the group rested while waiting for some news. Dr. Refill soon arrived and told them Oscar was going to be fine. She confirmed he was asleep, but there were no serious injuries. She had already healed the burns and he would wake up soon. Ganma felt a wave of relief. Malik added that Oscar wasn't the type to go down so easily. He then asked Ganma about what he had mentioned earlier. Ganma stayed quiet for a moment, then explained that the demon insects that attacked them were living creatures, but they were only empty shells. He said they didn't have a will of their own and were just being controlled like puppets. Charlotte guessed they were similar to golems, but Ganma disagreed. He said that golems usually had a controller or master nearby, but he couldn't sense anyone close by. That led him to believe someone was controlling the creature from far away. Somewhere else, Tonbo was watching a screen carefully. He might be watching the replay of their fight. Ganma added that even if they destroyed the insect's body, it didn't mean they had truly defeated it. He believed the real danger was still out there, and there had to be a nest somewhere. Charlotte agreed that this made sense. However, Ganma had already scanned the area again with his hawk eyes after the fight, and he couldn't find anything that looked like a nest. Charlotte then looked at Malik, who became serious behind his sunglasses. He guessed that the enemies might be hiding in a different dimension. Ganma asked what he meant by that. Malik explained that there shouldn't be anything Ganma couldn't see, so if nothing showed up, then the enemy had to be in a separate space entirely. Charlotte didn't agree right away, but Malik pointed out that even though the Empire's technology was advanced, it was possible the enemy's tech was even better. He and Oscar only survived because Ganma and Charlotte managed to freeze the enemy in time. Still, they had a lot to figure out about what the enemy wanted and where they were coming from. Malik got so stressed that he reached for a cigarette, but Charlotte quickly took them away. She told everyone to focus on improving their skills. Their fused arrow had worked during the fight, but it was still too unstable to rely on. Malik then suggested something with a serious look on his face. He said it was time for their squad to go on a training camp. If they wanted to get better and make their techniques solid, they had to eat, sleep, and train together without breaks. Ganma and Mabel agreed with the idea. Malik added that by eating together, sleeping under one roof, and even sharing a bath, they could build a deeper understanding of one another and strengthen their teamwork. Refill joked, asking if Malik really wanted to join them in the bath. Malik said he absolutely did. Charlotte sighed and grabbed him by the tail. She admitted she liked the bold plan. Malik quickly asked her not to bring the cage again. Suddenly, Oscar showed up looking healthy and agreed to join the training camp. Ganma asked with concern if it was really okay for him to be moving around already. Oscar said sorry for making them worry. He said what mattered now was focusing on the fun plan they were talking about. He promised there was nothing strange about it and that he was being honest. Oscar explained that their attacks would fail if their movements didn't match. If they could work better together and move in sync, their combo attacks would become more stable. Even Charlotte couldn't argue with that. She mentioned that it wasn't just her ice magic they could use. Mabel had earth magic, and Refill had suggestion magic. She suggested they combine all of those with Ganma's arrows to create more attack options. Ganma said he would give his best. At the same time, deeper in the forest, some lower-ranked soldiers kept scouting the area. Mard sat by himself and complained that everyone was treating him like a joke. The soldier who had saved him earlier sat down beside him and said he understood how Mard felt. The man talked about how he had been in a similar situation before, rushing ahead without listening to his team. He showed the result of that choice. His left hand had been cut off. Mard was shocked. The man then admitted that he used to get angry about always being the one who needed help. But that moment helped him realize his own limits. He also believed Mard had already come to the same understanding deep down. The man told him that the part of himself he saw as weak was something he needed to accept. Mard asked if the man had accepted his own weakness. The man said he had because someone believed in him enough to help him move forward. He guessed Mard had someone like that too, but Mard said no one did. After that, the man walked away and left him. Mard stared at the weapon in his hand. His mind went back to his academy days, remembering a moment when Ganma asked if he was okay. Mard had snapped at him, telling him to mind his own business. Ganma, still smiling, said he was just glad Mard seemed fine but reminded him not to push himself too hard. He said he would always be there if Mard needed anything. Mard called him a worrywart and said he was fine. Back in the present, Mard slammed his weapon to the ground. He said he figured things out too late. He finally saw that he had been leaning on Ganma's kindness all along, but didn't want to admit how weak and useless he felt. Looking up at the tall ice boulder in front of him, he realized he had always been jealous of Ganma's strength. He wished to become stronger. Stronger than anyone. Unbeatable. At that moment, someone asked Mard what strength really meant. He quickly looked around to see who had spoken. A demon insect suddenly showed up and said it came to recruit Mard to its side. Mard was confused and didn't know what to say. Then, the demon insect named George appeared right in front of him and whispered that strength didn't last forever. Mard quickly stepped back, surprised. George went on to say that people would all die one day, and that anything that doesn't last forever had no real meaning. Still, if Mard truly wanted power, George said he could give it to him. In return, George wanted Mard to help with his research. He explained that he was studying people like Mard, who were born with a divine fate. George told him to think it over and handed him a black stick. He said he wasn't forcing Mard to do anything. Mard looked at the stick for a moment, and the next second George had already disappeared. Right after that, some soldiers called the outer group for dinner. Mard stared at the black stick in his hand and wondered what had just happened. As he quietly walked behind the others, he realized something. For the first time, he had a chance to become stronger. He wouldn't have to feel useless or like a burden ever again. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 7.5. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.